The lights of the high-rise boardroom flickered overhead as a single figure stood at the grand mahogany table, his tailored suit immaculate, his posture rigid with power. In the very same building, miles away from that table in spirit if not distance, a janitor with worn gloves and a faded name badge toiled in the basement corridors, unseen by most. There was a moment, just a heartbeat, when the two paths crossed in a way neither would ever forget. It began as a jest, whispered among board members. The billionaire CEO asked the janitor for financial advice. But the janitor's first words left her speechless, changed her world. If you believe in kindness, every person's worth, and the gift of second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel now. Cassandra Reed had become CEO of Titan Industries by the age of 45. She had climbed, clawed, negotiated, conquered. She had taken over from her father's legacy and restructured everything, driven by the need to prove she belonged, that she could build more than a name, that she could become more than the boss's daughter. On paper, she had everything: power, wealth, influence. Every evening she crossed the bridge from opulent townhouse to glass tower, watched the city lights from her penthouse window, and told herself it was all worth it. But inside, a void had begun to expand. A quiet emptiness she couldn't ward off with board meetings or jet setting. Meanwhile, on the 13th floor basement corridor of Titan Industries, Oscar Vega cleaned floors and emptied trash bins. He had taken this job after his long-dreamed theater career collapsed when the economic downturn hit his family. He had once held a shining future, auditions, promise, praise. Then responsibilities, his younger sister needing medical care, his mother's bills mounting, and the realization that talent alone does not always save you. He took the janitor role with pride, quietly vowing to return the salary, modest though it was, into his sister's treatment and future. He carried within him a bright hope, chipped and dusty now, but not extinguished. One morning, Cassandra flung open the basement door in frustration, the hum of office chatter still in her ears. A big deal had fallen through. Her investors were pressuring. She roamed the corridors looking for calm, space. She bumped into Oscar, pushing a cart loaded with cleaning supplies. For a moment, their eyes met. She barely saw him, just a janitor in her world, but something unsettled her in that glance. Perhaps she saw fatigue and dignity. Perhaps she saw resilience rather than surrender. Or perhaps she only glimpsed that he looked more alive than she felt. With a half-smile, she said, "Oscar, right?" and asked him to join her for coffee, as a joke at first. She would ask him about the simplest thing: how he'd manage money. What would a janitor say if a CEO asked him for advice? It would be entertainment, a show of benevolence, maybe some PR Oscar had known her name. In a building his sister's supplier once dealt with, he had seen her picture. He had walked those hallways, cleaned those offices, and never expected to be invited into a high-end cafe across the street. He sat across from her, the table glinting with silverware, the smell of espresso all around. Cassandra asked, half laughing, "So, Oscar, if you were in my shoes, what would you tell yourself about money?" She expected a nervous glance, a nervous chuckle, maybe a polite shrug. But what came out of Oscar's lips stunned her and changed the trajectory of both their lives. He said, "I'd remind myself that money is just a tool, but people are where the real wealth lies." Those two words stunned Cassandra. She blinked. She asked him to repeat. He did. And for a long moment there was silence, the cafe ambiance muted by the impact of his sincerity. She expected him to say, "Invest in stocks," or "diversify your portfolio." Instead, he said, "Wealth isn't what you have, but what you share. The hardest times teach you the most. So when things are falling apart, don't hold money tight, hold people close." Cassandra felt something crack inside her. The veneer of her empire had been masking the absence of heart. The walls she'd built around her success, protecting a fear she did not admit. In the days that followed, Cassandra kept returning to that moment. She watched Oscar working, how he greeted every cleaning staff with kindness, how he listened. She overheard him at lunch in the staff lounge, talking of his sister's recovery, of his dreams of acting. She saw him stow away a small theater program he'd found in a bookstore. She recognized in him the gentle insistence on purpose beyond pay. Meanwhile, the company crisis deepened. Investors demanded results. Market share dropped. Headlines whispered that Titan Industries was becoming bloated, outdated, emotionally disconnected from its workforce. Cassandra's confidence faltered. She sensed that the few people she truly had on her side were slipping. She felt isolated. One night, she wandered into the depths of the building seeking solace and ended up face to face with Oscar again, mopping quietly in the stairwell. She asked him how he managed pressure. He looked up, still calm, and said, "I just remind myself that even when I'm covered in bucket water and cleaning trash, I'm not trash. I'm a person, and I treat others as people too. If I do right by them, I sleep well." That struck her. She thought, when was the last time I slept well because I did right by someone? She realized she was excelling in business on paper but losing in human connection. She asked him then, "What about you, Oscar? What do you want?" He said, "I want the chance to act again. I want my sister to walk without pain. I want a place where people are seen, not just numbers." Cassandra listened, and for the first time felt compassion, not for charity, but for humanity. She began to question the culture around her. The luxury dinners, the investor pitches, the relentless drive, all at the cost of the people who cleaned, supported, operated within the company. She felt a shift. As the company plunged into a turbulent quarter, Cassandra decided to take a risk. She invited Oscar to a meeting, not because he did cleaning, but because she wanted to hear the voice of someone who saw the company from its base level. She asked Oscar to speak honestly. What did he think Titan Industries lacked? Incredulously, he accepted. In that meeting, in a room full of executives and board members, in front of polished walls and chrome finishes, Oscar stood and said what he'd said in the cafe: "People matter. If you only measure profit, you forget purpose. You need people who believe in what you're doing." The room turned silent. Cassandra watched her colleagues shift uncomfortably, unused to being confronted by a janitor with dignity. But she also watched something else, a stir in the room. A board member leaned forward. Someone asked a question. The investors didn't laugh. They listened, and that seed of change began. She made changes. She started talking to every cleaning staff, to the cafeteria workers, to the security guards. She asked their hopes, listened to their complaints, and began to restructure the company's bonus system. Instituted scholarship funds for their children, brought in training programs and performance reviews that included everyone. She also revisited Titan's core mission, not just profitability but purpose. She launched a humanitarian initiative. For every new contract, they would direct a portion of profits to community programs, naming it the People First Fund. This shift did not come without pain. There were investors who pulled away, board members who derided it as softness, competitors who called her distracted. Cassandra felt the weight of the old business world pushing back. Her nights returned, full of insomnia, not just because of charts and forecasts, but because she had awakened to vulnerability, the kind that comes when you admit you've been wrong. She wept in solitude more than once, remembering how many times she dismissed someone's voice, passed by the janitor without a glance, prioritized deals over dignity. Meanwhile, Oscar still looked after the floors, still carried his dreams quietly. He noticed the changes but never boasted. Instead, during the breaks, he would sit in the staff lounge watching a small theater clip on his phone and smile when a cleaning buddy asked how his sister was. Then came the day when Titan Industries turned a corner not just in earnings but in morale. The people-first strategy began to pay off. Productivity rose, turnover fell, public perception improved, but more importantly, the people who had been invisible began to feel seen. On the floor of the manufacturing plant, one worker said to another, "They asked us what we thought before they asked investors." And another, "I get a scholarship fund now for my daughter." Cassandra visited that plant floor, stood among workers with grease-stained hands, and realized this was real. This was worth it. In the bottom corner, she saw Oscar, sweeping, looking around, smiling. Their eyes met. He nodded. She nodded. A silent pact formed. They were part of something bigger now, but the truth was, the transformation had gone deeper for Cassandra herself. She felt alive again. In the sound of laughter in the catering hall, in the thanks from a security guard who said she mattered, she felt purpose. And in a private moment, she found Oscar's theater program pinned to a board in his small locker. It said, Audition 2023, supporting role. She asked him what happened. He said, I didn't go. I thought I should stay here helping my sister. She asked, Can I do anything to help you? He hesitated, then said, You already are. She insisted. She got him an audition for a small corporate film Titan was producing to show their new culture. It wasn't Broadway, but it was a stage. He needed the chance, and she had the platform. He took it. When he stepped on that set, camera rolling, delivering his few lines, Cassandra watched from behind a monitor. At the end of the day, he wiped his brow and looked at her. He said simply, Thank you for seeing me. It could have ended there as a feel-good footnote. But life does not always wrap neatly. A scandal hit Titan Industries. A supplier in a foreign country was found exploiting workers, and the headlines came screaming. Cassandra felt the crisis as one might feel a punch to the gut. The investor calls surged, the press leapt, old board members threatened her position. She thought this could undo everything. The strategy could collapse. She could lose everything. She was terrified. In that moment of fear, she turned to Oscar. She asked, What do I do? He said, Keep doing what you said you'd do. Admit you were wrong. Make it right. He didn't mention money. He mentioned integrity. She summoned the board, told them the truth, canceled the contract with that supplier, redirected resources to audits, transparency initiatives. She stood in the press conference and admitted the company had failed its values and promised it would fix it. Many said it was reckless, but many more said it was brave. Slowly, the tides changed again. People responded. Customers appreciated the honesty. The workers at Titan felt validated. The company's brand, rebuilt on authenticity, started to stabilize. Cassandra's board remained tense, but she held firm. She credited the change, unapologetically, to the janitor who gave her financial advice as a joke. The board suited looked at her, and she nodded at Oscar, standing in the back of the room, mopping quietly, no fanfare. It dawned on everyone. Sometimes the most profound counsel comes from the most unexpected place. As the months rolled by, Oscar's sister walked unassisted for the first time in 2 years, thanks to the new scholarship fund covering her therapy. Oscar got a small acting job in a regional play. He still cleaned the corridors of Titan Industries, but now with a different badge of honor in his heart. Cassandra started speaking publicly about people strategy, not just business strategy. She heard her own voice shift from one of dominance to one of stewardship. She felt shame for what she had overlooked and gratitude for what she now embraced. She realized that the measure of wealth was not the number in the bank, but the number of lives you lift. And on one company picnic, under the wide sky of late afternoon, Cassandra made a speech. She looked at the faces of the employees, the cafeteria workers, the maintenance crew, the interns, and acknowledged them. You are the blood and promise of this company. She pointed to Oscar and said, And this man taught me what true value is. Oscar stepped forward humbly. He smiled at the crowd. In the hush that followed, the applause rose, not just politeness, but recognition. She watched him and felt love for the idea of hope, still alive in him, still alive in her. Cassandra's empire was still Titan Industries, but her legacy had undergone a metamorphosis. What began as a joke had grown into a revolution of empathy. She had asked a janitor for financial advice and received far more, a reminder of humanity, a redirection of purpose, a chance at redemption. Oscar's first words, "People are where the real wealth lies," echoed in her mind each night as she checked her spreadsheets and each morning as she surveyed the city from her window. They reminded her that cleaning floors and closing deals are not opposite acts. They are part of the same purpose when we treat all with dignity. Now, near the end of this story, I ask you, If this touched your heart and reminded you that every person, no matter their job, no matter their appearance, has wisdom, hope, and worth, then please comment below and share how someone unexpected changed your life. And if you felt the emotion of this moment, I kindly ask you to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's spread kindness. Let's believe in second chances. Let's honor the quiet voices the world often misses. Thank you for being here and listening to the journey of two lives transforming each other.